Welcome to Making It Real in this very special segment that I'm launching as a spinoff to the video series here. I'm actually introducing something I'm calling Coach's Corner, and it's a way for you to connect with folks like the two wonderful women that I'm about to introduce you to, Laura and Amy, and we will get to them in just a moment. But essentially, I'm noticing that a lot of our practitioners at Meal Garden and in our community are really interested in different coaching modalities, whether it be for themselves or adopting those sorts of coaching modalities for their work with clients. So I thought that I would each and every month bring on some coaches that are really inspiring and intriguing me at the moment. And so a particular topic that has been top of mind for me just as of lately has been mBraining. And if you don't know what that is, totally cool. We're going to get into it. And that eventually led me to connect with Laura and Amy, who are certified life coaches, educators, and presenters. So Laura and Amy, thank you so much for being on the show. And maybe Amy, would you like to raise your hand now so they all know who's Amy? Amazing. And then Laura. Perfect. So Laura and Amy study extensively in the fields of psychology, neuroscience, education, and learning with an intent to understand the ways in which our brains learn, which I know a lot of us are super excited about right now. The way our brains learn, rewire, and facilitate personal growth and happiness. And further, they integrate this information into various coaching techniques. We're going to be exploring mBraining, but these ladies are really well equipped with a wide holistic range of modalities and training that will really most effectively inspire their clients to be in tune with themselves. And they're going to dive into what that in tune really means, and love every aspect of their life. So without further ado, thank you so much, Laura and Amy, for being on the show.
You're great.
Thanks for having us, Kiki.
Yay! So what I asked them to kind of dive a little bit deeper into was this concept of mBraining. And Laura, would you like to kind of take it away and explain what that is and dive into the presentation that you have prepared for us today?
I would love to do that. I'm so excited to share it. And I was thinking about this morning when I was meditating, I was thinking that in this time, when our world is shifting and changing and so just moving all the time and every day, that it would be nice for each of us to really have a solid foundation to go within and really check in with. So I'm excited to share it, particularly in this time and right now. So I'm going to share my screen.
Perfect.
And get that on there and get our presentation going. And I'm going to let me get to slideshow. Wait, oh no, I didn't annotate. Oh, oh my gosh, sorry.
That's okay.
Slideshow. I'm gonna try that again. I'm gonna go to slideshow from start. And
amazing, we did it.
Okay, there we go. And I'm gonna take this up and just get us over there. So mBraining, the little m stands for multiple braining, and it's a whole suite of tools. We'll tell you a little bit more about that for facilitating going in and really connecting with our brains within. And as Kiki mentioned, we're both mBIT trainers and coaches. So Amy's going to start off on our presentation, and I'll just hand it back over to her.
Hi. I'm really excited to introduce mBraining to you. It very much meets both of our passion, where we are very interested in neuroscience, and also how that comes around to connecting with our own wisdom and spirituality. Sometimes for some people that's a feeling of going within to their own self, and sometimes it's a feeling of connecting to a greater whole. So this is about that.
Oh no. Oh no, like how did that, I tested it all. I don't know what to do with that.
Back one.
Okay, so I do not know why it did that. Here we go, try again, go ahead.
So this is that feeling of kind of having an idea that you really, really like, And in your head, it sounds like a great idea, but your heart is just not feeling it. You just don't want to. You think you should, but you don't want to. And how that feels to feel really divided between those two perspectives. And sometimes we're not really sure what to do. And sometimes we're involving all three. So we have, you know, our head saying yes, and our gut saying no, and our heart saying, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want right now. So the feeling of just being divided and unable to kind of feel all together as one, making decisions and going forward.
And sometimes that's like when your head really wants you to do a goal, but your heart is kind of like, yeah, no, I'm not really interested. Not quite there, not quite on board.
Yeah, and then there's, in contrast to that, I'm sure that you can all think of, if you take a moment, a really, really fabulous decision you made. It ended up working out really, really well. It felt great when you made the decision. It felt great while you were doing it, and in the end, it worked out great. You still probably look back thinking, that was the best decision I ever made. And you can feel that all the parts of you were all in to that decision. And what we really want is we want to help people figure out how to create that feeling of getting all those brains lined up on purpose, so that you're not just flipping a coin and going like, oh, I hope it's one of those times. It's really that you can actually put yourself in a position to have more and more experiences that feel all lined up and that feel just right, and then end up making decisions like that more and more regularly.
And so Amy and I have incorporated that into our practices, our coaching practices, for a long time. And then when I discovered mBraining, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the language and the research and the foundation and the science and everything that put a really nice, like, comprehensive scientific balance to what we were doing. And it gave us a lot of language to work from. And so enter mBraining, which was so exciting. I said, Amy, we got to do this. And what I love about the mBraining is that it is scientifically proven. It was worked, there's over 6,000 research articles that went into it, and lots of hands-on testing. But they have all these proven techniques, science-based proven techniques for accessing and aligning all of our inner intelligences. And one of the greatest outcomes of living like this and bringing it into your moment by moment days is that you get to live a really beautiful life that is really guided by your inner wisdoms of your head, heart, and gut brain. And it really feels amazing when you approach each day like that. So no surprise to most of you who are following Kiki, I'm sure you're all aware that humans have been, from the neuroscience perspective, defined as having actually 3 brains. And I put at least in there because there's more to come. But the 3 that have been scientifically and completely proven to be a brain are the head, heart, and gut. And they had to have some neural, like physical properties to be designated as a brain, and also some functional ones. The physical ones go on forever, and you can look up that all over the place. But more importantly than that, not only does it have to have neurons in every one of these areas, but they have to be able to do a number of functional things. Like they have to be able to take in and receive, be receptive to information from your environment. They have to be able to learn from it, adapt behaviors because of it. They need to be able to communicate back and forth to your other neural centers. And one really cool thing is that they actually hold memories, so they can learn and really, really help you live your life well. And each one of these, the head, heart, and gut, has a very special and really cool area of wisdom that can add to every decision that we make if we take the time to touch in and meet them and listen to them.
One of my favorite parts about that, Laura, is that, you know, to think of all of our brains, not just our head brain, but our heart brain and our gut brain being neuroplastic, which means we can change that and really change how the communications happen.
And the more you do that, the more communication you will build between them, and the more easily you will receive all the messages from them. So I'm going to set this up for people who are really head brain. So really, in most of our lives, we are pretty much in our heads, and we drop down to our heart. Sometimes we drop down to our gut, like, oh, that feels kind of scary or whatever. But basically, in our lives at this period of time in our existence, we're really good at really researching and accessing resources from the outer world outside of ourselves. We can talk to friends, we can take courses, we, find out how, really great people are doing things and copy that. And we can do all kinds of things that really, really help us from the outside. But not all of us have ever been encouraged to, or even had a really practical way of going inside to kind of check, okay, so if that's my decision, how do I really feel about that? And have I taken everything that I want to into account for this decision? And so all of our inner intelligences, each one of our brains has a particular area of strength and expertise that it wants us to listen to. Sometimes when your gut is like not letting you take action, it's because you haven't listened to it yet, and it's got something to say. And each one of our brains, their number one priority is our absolute survival. And so whatever input they have, it really has our best interest at heart, always. And our brains are really, really able to connect and work with each other. They want to work with each other. And for us, as the person who owns them all, it feels really great when they're working right together and taking us aligned, like everybody's rowing in the right direction for us. And so the goal of the mBIT coaching is that we help you integrate all three in your brains to work together. And it creates an amazing sense of confidence to move into every day. There's a little more inner peace in all of your decisions. And eventually, because you're touching in so much with what you have within, your life becomes a beautiful expression of your authentic self, who you truly are deeply within.
And it's
so
also,
I want you to see that you have more than one brain. Go ahead, Amy. Sorry.
so also it's this spiral where, if you rewire your brains a little bit and get a new experience and a new confidence, then you go out with this new confidence and you have different experiences. And your life kind of starts to change in this way where it just rolls out into bigger and bigger change.
Yeah, so it's really cool. And it has been really transformational for both Amy and I, for the people around us who watch us grow. And then, of course, it's made a fantastic difference in our clients and our practices. So let's talk about the three brains, Amy.
Yeah, so let's all point to our brain. I mean, the premise is, right, that's what we're all going to do, really. And what we want to transform the world into going like, how did you do all of them all at once, right?
Don't have enough hands.
Right? That's true. No, exactly. So yeah, but let's start up here because that's where we instinctively, usually when we hear the word brain, that's where we go. So let's talk a little bit about the head brain. The head brain's other scientific name is the cephalic brain. And it's, of course, the brain in our body that has the most neurons. It has 50 to 100 billion neurons and somewhere around 100 trillion synapses. So there is a lot going on up there, right? It's definitely by far the most researched brain. It's definitely the one that we feel the most pride in if it's powerful, right? We're like, I really have a compassionate heart. No, I'm so smart. We would love to be smart, right? We think it's going to be our ticket. So, so many of us try to really enhance that one and try to live up there as much as we can. And we really have, as a society, maybe over worshipped the head brain to some extent. And one of the interesting things in thinking about prioritizing it in that way is that because it's the part that takes in all the information from the outside world through our eyes, through our ears, through taste, through pressure and warmth on our fingers, and all the things that are going on inside in my stomach and in my heart, all those signals and information go up there. So that's 90% of the signals that go into our head brain, 90% of them are going up into our head brain. Only 10% of communication is actually heading down into our body. Just so I want you to imagine if you have a fluttering of nervousness in your stomach and you try your very best to use all your head brain power to get that stomach to calm down, you only have 10% of communication going that way. It's not a real efficient way to calm your stomach down, if you can imagine. So, getting a sense of how to, balance it a little bit better and get in a better communication with the other brains.
Right, and then to really consciously receive the messages from your other brains is really a big part of that too, and help the brain learn and receive more. So yeah.
So so we know that the head brain is specializing in things like in the highest expression, that would be creativity, to solve any problem, to be absolutely think of millions of solutions for any one situation. But the things that, but so those places where we do that is it's perception, like I was talking about, like taking in the signals from the outside world and whatever way they come to us. And then thinking and reasoning and planning about what we're going to do next. And then also making meaning, which is actually a really interesting thing because it can kind of be it can be a great thing, but also can be kind of a hard thing where if we've really put two things together in a certain way and we can't really unmake that meaning for ourselves, like any kind of situation. Laura has a great story about something we all kind of agree on as kind of a negative thing, not being a negative thing to everybody. And that's because we all kind of put our own meaning to almost any situation that we come across. I'd love for her to tell the story because it's such a good example.
Yeah, I'd love to tell the story. So we picked up a friend of mine who lived in Hawaii, and we were taking her out to see the California coast so she could see how beautiful it was here. And as we were driving down the road, we went past a roadkill that happened to be a skunk. And we're all in the car going, oh, skunk, yeah, I just hate that smell and all that. And she was like, a skunk? I'm smelling a skunk. Oh my God, I've never smelled a skunk. That's what it smells like. Oh my God, that's so fabulous. I can't wait to tell everybody I smell the skunk. And she was and pretty soon all of us were smiling and they were just absolutely loving the smell of a skunk because they didn't realize it was something like that. But there's ways, you know, the same event, you know, when two people look at it or two people experience it, they will interpret it in different ways. And that's what your head brain is about. And sometimes in the mBraining, sometimes just creating some different context on the meaning we're making out of things can shift everything. So, yeah.
So,
I love that story.
Yeah. So the next slide is about some of the ways that we know kind of from these ancient wisdoms or just from our just internal knowing. We have all kinds of sayings that we naturally use all the time that show that we kind of already know what the head brain specializes in. So we've made a list of sayings to kind of exemplify that. And if you think about let's put our heads together, we don't mean physically let's put our heads next to each other like in we mean let's think about this together. Let's get our creativity going together, right? Or if he's headstrong, he's already decided and he's going there no matter what, right? And also, you know, if you say wrap my head around that, it means like you need to think about the whole thing, right? I need to get my, so these are all about those head brain strengths. And we've been using these sayings forever. So we know that we already know what these brains specialize in from some of these colloquial sayings that we are really familiar with.
Right. So the second brain we're going to talk about, a few random facts about that, is the heart brain, which is right there in the middle of your chest, of course. And this one is actually the littlest brain. It's only 30 to 120,000 neurons, which is kind of astonishing when you think of how small it is and what a big role it plays in our life. One of the most interesting things about the heart brain is that we all start off with the same amount, around 100,000 inside our hearts when we're born. And through study of older people and some of the neuroscience they've done around that, they find that it's the elderly that have anywhere between the 30 and the 120,000. And so when we know, what we know in neuroscience is that if you use something a lot, you create a great pathway for that. And if you don't use it a lot, then it does like to prune away and dwindle down. And it's a use it or lose it thing. And so when you think about people who may not have had a lot of love or became very bitter in their lives, if they're not using a lot of neurons in their heart, they really do fall away. And so at the end, if you want to have a beautiful, loving heart, the way you're going to get that is to be a beautiful, loving person and using it all you can to make that part of your life on an everyday basis. The actual size of that heart brain is the size exactly of a lobster brain, which is a great metaphor to think of the lobster brain in your heart. And one of the things that's super cool about the lobsters is that they're actually like incredibly social creatures. If you really study them, they're pretty complex, community-oriented animals way down there in the bottom of the ocean. So pretty cool. The heart is also the center. And so the ANS system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic, is regulated and maintained by the heart. And it also is the biggest electromagnetic field. And although it's small, it's very mighty. And we do have an energy around us with our heart. And if you are a loving person and you go around somebody, you will entrain them and bring them to your space and welcome them to your loving space. So the heart brain, the highest expression, is really easy to figure out. Of course, it's all about our emotions and our feelings. It's all about, you know, the connections and the relationships that we value in our lives. And it also is the center of where our values are and our moral code. And sometimes when you can't move on a decision, it can be because it really is conflicting with your innermost heartfelt values and moral codes. So it's good to check in with that heart. So let's take a quick look at some of the heart sayings. Of course, you can lose your heart. You can have your heart stolen. You can have it broken. You can wear your heart on your sleeve, which means, you know, you don't hide your feelings really well. My heart goes out to you. I hold you close in my heart. And you can see that it's all about just loving and feeling and connecting. And with values, you can become disheartened if it's not matching your values anymore. And so the heart is like the general. And I mean, the emperor, the gut is like the general, and the head is more like the army that carries everything out.
So our third brain that we're going to talk about is the gut brain, which is also scientifically called the enteric brain. And it's got 200 to 500 million neurons, which is the same number of neurons as a cat has in its head brain. So I want you to think about your cat or your friend's cat or any cat you've ever known. That cat, if it's sitting there in the room, it is totally self-possessed. It won't do anything it doesn't want to do. It knows how to find food and take care of itself and probably take care of you. And, you know, and it knows exactly what it wants. So if you think of a cat, that's how much brain power you have in your gut. So another cool thing about the gut brain is that it houses our immune system. So, you know, if you want to be really, really healthy, take care and communicate with that gut. It has a lot to say about what you need to do to take your best care of yourself as you can. Also, if you want to be happy, take care of your gut, because 85% of our neurotransmitters for happiness, 85% of the serotonin specifically, comes from our gut. And so our gut can also deliver great happiness to ourselves if we're really in touch and treating it well. Also, the enteric brain is the most ancient evolutionarily. So if we take back to our most ancient critters coming in the sea, which also mimics the enteric brain is the first brain that develops in utero when we're in our mother's womb, where our first brain that develops is that enteric brain. So the competencies, the things that the gut, you can turn, Laura, the things that the gut is really, really great at are things to do with survival, like those really, really basic needs that we have as a critter. We need to, you know, establish who we are and our territory. We need to create more of us. We need to procreate. We need to survive. So we need to be able to move and eat things that are healthy, that aren't going to hurt us, and get rid of them. So if you think about all those, the core of who I am, taking care of myself for survival, and really needed to take action about getting food. So all those things are about what the gut is really responsible and really good at.
Oh, I'm going to move this over just because I want you to see this girl. She's totally taking a gutsy move off of that thing. Oh. Oh no, now it's not going to do it. Okay.
So, and you can again see that we already know all this stuff, because whenever we talk, these are the things that come out of our mouth. That was a gutsy move. You know, it took a lot of courage to do that. Or I'll have to digest that, which means I have to figure out if that really matches who I am. If that's really, you know, matching how I feel in my authentic self. Or a fire in my belly means, boy, I got to get moving, right? So those are all lining up again with our actual understanding and deep cultural, even vocabulary for what our gut brain is in charge of.
Yeah, and so the mBraining then is, you know, going in and touching in on all of these three areas. And one of the things that struck me really when I started studying this was that all of us are doing this anyway. Like, we're all kind of going, I knew that. And when I did that, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Or, you know, I mean, I had that goal, but my heart, I knew I wasn't going to do it. My heart just really wasn't in it. And so we're already doing this. We're already living and communicating somewhat with all three of our brains. And our goal is to help you do that consistently and with enough practice so that it becomes what you do all of the time. And then you can imagine if that became a really automatic habit that you're kind of like, oh, how is all of me feeling about this? And then I'll do that. And so it's really, and as the brains work, the more you do that, the easier and faster that that happens.
And I think also one of the most powerful things for me about the mBraining and doing and learning the three brains and is that there's this experience where when you're working with somebody on it, who can really discreetly listen, help you listen to what those brains are saying, you actually find these moments where one of your brains like, nope. And we can turn it around so that the solution includes all of those perspectives. And that's when you get that feeling of all in, of lining up. And we aren't really good at making sure we totally honor what that no is sometimes and really look at how do we bring in the creativity to make the no a yes? How do we do that? And I think that's kind of the magic of it for me.
And for me, one of the things that I love about mBraining is that at the very, very core and at the very, very beginning of everything we do in mBraining is that we always start with the heart. Even though it's the littlest guy, we really just start with the heart. And we all know how that feels, and the heart leads in most things that we do. And so I just want to take a second just to have you just for a second, just stop and think about someone that you really love, someone who is just so near and dear to you that you just can't imagine not being with that person or around that person. And just really stop for a second and just really feel that love in your heart. Just drop down right out of your head and just really feel that love, just that love. And Kiki, you're so perfect. That's so perfect, because I was going to say, and then it's so interesting. So that's the interoception. That's your brain really registering the feeling of that. And then when you bring your hand on your heart, that's that exteroception, which amplifies that feeling so beautifully. And it does make it more powerful when you do that. And so one of the processes of mBraining is learning how to amplify the messages from your other brains that don't speak as clearly in language and verbal things. So now, just for a second, Kiki, just for a change, just think of that. Go back to feeling that again, like just really feeling that again, but leave your hands down for a second. Leave your hands down for a second and just really feel that in your heart. And then take your hands and instead of putting them on your heart, put them up on your shoulder. And see if that amplifies that feeling in the same way.
No, it seems like a distraction.
Yeah, it's so powerful when the interoception meets the exteroception. So quite often we will have people touch their head, heart, and gut when we work on them. But I love it that the heart leads. I just love that. So Amy, go ahead.
So one of the things, and I'm not going to cover it extensively right now because we don't have time, but we use a company called HeartMath to talk about balanced breathing, which is an incredibly core part of mBraining, because if we're going to have that really beautiful, clear communication from our different neural centers, and then we're going to help them connect, it's really critical that we actually come to a balanced place in our autonomic nervous system, so that we're not anxious and we're not kind of low energy, that we're in this calm, alert state. And I'll briefly describe that, is that if you're breathing in to the same count as you breathe out with smooth transitions, you're going to very quickly get into a place of autonomic balance. It's key that they're even, because actually it affects our breath and our heart rate into balancing the nervous system. I'm going to stop there on that one. There's a lot more to talk about that, but I just wanted to I'm going to have you do that just briefly. Not usually we do it 2 minutes. I'm just going to give a little introduction to it, but I'm not going to totally cover it, so that's something, to explore more.
Yeah, and just for people who might want to do this at home, it really is the 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out is the scientific best practice for creating balanced breathing and autonomic balance. So.
And just one quick question: from breathing in through your nose or mouth, or it doesn't matter?
Well, I mean, to get into it, it's kind of follows the really good breathing behaviors, which is breathing in through your nose, expanding your diaphragm. And sometimes for us, it helps to sit up straight because we're not collapsing, that diaphragm muscle, which is really critical. Actually, it's one of the bridges in our neural system, in our autonomic nervous system. So we don't want to collapse that place where those neural systems are all coming together, because that's going to help us communicate between the brains.
Yeah, and because also there's so much around the mouth and area that is another bridge to the ANS, that you're right on, Kiki. If you breathe in through your nose and out through pursed lips, it really is the most calming. So,
Got it. Thank you.
Good question. Thanks.
Yeah, great question. Especially since I was like, we're not going to talk about this anymore.
I'm like, yes, we are. Yeah.
Yes, we are. We're talking about it more. Yeah, so I'm not going to talk too much about the foundational sequence, but I am going to walk us through it. So the foundational sequence starts at the heart, goes to the head, back to the heart, back to the gut, and then back to the heart. So we are always finishing at the heart, and we're always starting at the heart and finishing at the heart. So we're just going to walk through an experience just to give you a sense of what it might feel like to actually just use each brain to kind of take a look at an issue. And I want to preface by, because we're not doing a whole process, you might not find everything agreeing and feeling great, because maybe that's not our starting spot, right? But I just want you to get a sense of the feeling of this to see what it might feel like to start there. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you all to think of a small issue or challenge that's maybe weighing on you. Once you have that in mind, I'd like you to imagine, what is your desired outcome? And now, hopefully you have that in mind in that short amount of time. Because what I want to do is take you right into that feeling of balanced breathing. I'm just going to do a count for you, 6 in and 6 out. We're going to do 6 breaths, and then we're going to move into checking in with our different neural centers. So here's a count. Let's start with an exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Beautiful smooth transfer. 6, 5, 6. And another beautiful transfer. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another beautiful transfer. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want you to get a sense, it's a kind of a sine wave, or a wave in the ocean, gently going down into the trough and up to the top of the wave, and gently moving across the top. And as you feel that feeling start to flow and to smoothly transition and come into that calm alert, I want you to drop down with your focus into your body. And I want you to take that issue or challenge that you were imagining, and I want you to bring it into your heart. And you can put your hand on your heart, really connect with that space. And I want you to sense, if that challenge, inside of that challenge, what is it that has value for you? What's the value inside of the thing that's challenging? Or what if it doesn't have value for you? In this challenge, what is it that you're truly wanting? What is in this challenge that is either keeping you from connecting with yourself or other people, or promoting you connecting with yourself or other people? Once you get a sense of what that feels like in your heart as you think about this challenge, get a sense of what's important to you and how you're connecting, I want you to take that feeling and just deliver it through your neural system up to your brain. And bring it up into your brain. And you can touch your head if you want, because that'll help you connect up there. And I want you to just sense from your brain, what is it that I think about this that I haven't thought of before? Could there be a different meaning that I could make from the same set of information? What do I really know is going on? And how could I bring even more creativity and more solutions to the table for myself? And as you get a sense of those kinds of things that your head has to offer around this, I want you to take it back to your heart and see how those feelings, those ideas from your head settle with your feelings, your values, your connections. See what that feels like. And when you get a sense of that, you can also take those thoughts and feelings down to your gut. And your gut, you can ask your gut, how does that feel? Does that feel like that really expresses who I deeply, deeply am? Does that express my authentic self? Is it safe for me to do these things? To feel these feelings? And am I really excited to make this happen? Have I really gotten in touch with what's meaningful to me about this so that I'm so excited to make it happen? And when you get a sense of that, to take it back up to your heart, and your heart will know in this moment whether we've completely got everybody on board. And whether you have or haven't, what I want you to know is, or what I want you to think about is, did this end up, what I think now at this moment, did it match my desired outcome or not? Sometimes we find it does. And sometimes what comes out after doing a process like that is really different than what I thought I wanted.
Just slowly open your eyes. How did that feel, Kiki?
My God, amazing. They didn't all sync up for my particular issue. And that was quite interesting. Yeah, it definitely helps to separate like head, heart, gut, like how you've kind of sequenced it out. Because I think the concept of it, and after watching the presentation, you're like, oh my God, yeah, like you just need to tap into all three hearts, like got it, next, you know what I mean? But then when you actually do it, you notice that when you separate them out, they are thinking sometimes different things. And so it's kind of, it's very insightful to have those moments of separateness so that you can then like realize, I guess, like which one needs.
Well, what my favorite thing about what you said, Kiki, was I just think it's fabulous and exciting that you know that. Like just going through that process, you're like, oh, they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, just having an awareness that it's not.
Totally.
You know, that's the only way you get to figure out how to get it to work is by with the fact that you are powerful enough and perceptive enough and in touch enough that you just know. Nope, they weren't all in agreement yet. And how powerful that information is.
Yeah, true. And so when you work with clients, is the goal then to eventually just have them come up with solutions that do feel right? All like, you know.
Well, that's a fabulous question. And I think one of the things that's amazing to me, and I was kind of referring to earlier, is the way it's like a sliding door of some craziness. Like all of a sudden you help people actually start to then work on the communication between the brains. And as you do that, the solution opens up in you that you, because they weren't communicating, they hadn't shifted in, and the perspective shifts, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, I had never thought of doing, I mean, or a couple different things. One is, oh, of course, it will work better if I do it that way. And like, we already knew, but we forgot. Sometimes we do that. Or going like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective. When I think about it from that perspective, I mean, if we have time, I can tell you a little story that kind of helps. So I have kind of this like iconic memory in my mind of, there's this picnic I was supposed to go to. And I really knew that I should. I mean, it was really important that I go talk to the people at that. It was an opportunity to really get in touch with some people I needed to get in touch with. And I knew I needed to go. And I wanted to go from the perspective of, I really, really wanted to make those connections, and I really, really wanted to be present and show up. And my gut was like, I do not want to do that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, absolutely like, I am not in the mood. I don't have the energy. I don't feel like it. You know, it's like you're up in your pajamas and you haven't put any makeup on. I mean, it's just like, no, you
Yeah.
know? And so it was really funny because sometimes what we'll do when we feel that, well, we just go anyway. You just go anyway. You're like, damn it, I just have to go, you know? And we just make ourselves go. But doesn't feel all that great, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes, you know, if we go in and start communicating, like, why don't you want to go? Like, what's that's a really interesting thing. You don't want to go, why not? And you know, you start playing around, and for some people it might be like, well, I just don't want to go alone. I don't really know the people. I have to show up and be my best self, and I don't feel like anybody's got my back.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and as I do that, it's like, oh, wait a minute, what if I took Laura? I mean, if Laura was there, oh my God, would we rock that room? And then do you see how my energy changed? I mean, really
Yeah.
just even thinking about it, like, oh my God, if Laura and I went together, we would dazzle everybody.
Yeah.
And then I get excited about it. I literally inside get excited about it when I talk about that,
Yeah.
right? Which is so different than going, I don't want to go. Or sometimes the other one that I do sometimes is like, you know what? You don't have to go, but it would be cool to go. And what if we just went for an hour?
Yeah.
We just go for an hour, and I promise you we'll leave in an hour. Stomach, is that going to be okay? And sometimes my stomach goes like, really, an hour I think I can do. That sounds all right,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can get on board if it's only an hour. So sometimes we just forget. You know, it's almost like communicating with friends. Sometimes we just forget that if we listen to that no, all of a sudden a better solution presents itself. And we weren't really that far off anyway. We just forgot that there might be just one thing needed to really line up.
Totally. And I think it comes back to what Laura was saying earlier, where like when she came across mBraining and I had the same feelings, it was like, oh my God, yeah, like we all have been doing this. And it's nice for someone to sort of sum it up in a way that feels like, okay, this is a modality, or like this is, you know, a set sequence or programming that we can follow, because I think that for a lot of people, it just feels innately right, because it is just innately our human instinct. And so to actually be able to dissect that and to see it in a way that's backed by hard science, so that our heads can get behind it, is really powerful.
Yeah. And then anytime, you know, you start to wire a neural system, and a 3 neural systems all getting wired together, that you're going to go into, like, if I go into a coaching session with some other mBIT coach, I'm like, breathe, and they're like, got it. They're like, what did your heart say? Got it. I mean, like, the session's like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Because they're all like, it's just fun. Like, we do often coach each other, but it like takes 3 seconds because they're already so well wired into the whole system together.
I love
So
that.
that's our objective, is we want people to get wired up with the connection and the communication happening. And the more we practice, the more that'll just start to happen naturally. But if they're all communicating and get used to really taking each other into account and honoring the communication from each, then we're really going to get more and more of that loving our life feeling.
I love it.
Yeah. And as you move through it and you keep doing that, then it gets to be more and more automatic, and you move into the world with an entirely different ability to take information in and process it. And so different things that used to bother you, you're kind of like, oh, I got where that one hits, you know, blah, blah, blah. So then you start moving differently through the world and you get different results, and it just starts to really blossom. And our whole goal is that you get to a place as quickly as you can where you're doing it independently. This is something that we can do independently, and then just kind of reach out to our friends for the bigger things. And so I love that piece of it, that it is about your growth and your expression, and you take it on, and does not build dependency in any way. So I love
Laura,
that too.
and I'm glad you said that, because really the goal is to liberate that authentic self and have that authentic self really self-sourcing and figuring out how to really do that self-sourcing experience, because I think we all need that in the years to come as it gets more and more complicated.
Yeah, and Grant Susan, who was one of the authors of the book, said, you know, his great goal was to liberate the human spirit. And I just think, I just love that. And that's exactly
and change the world.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, they want to do that too.
He wants to change the world. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So in wrapping it up, I just want to say that mBIT and mBIT are the name for the techniques, and they are multiple brain integration techniques. And there's a whole suite of them. There's techniques, there's tools, there's strategy, there's journaling. And the big thing that we want to do as mBIT coaches, which we just add to our other modalities, is we help you to connect with and communicate with all of your brains, to be able to touch in and draw out the wisdom and the intelligence and the guidance that they have for you, and then train your brains to communicate with each other and get that strong and flowing and wiring, and then help you really skillfully be able to kind of get, oh, so my gut isn't behind that. What's behind that? Oh, now it is. Okay, now how does that, oh yeah, now, okay, now I can do that. And so that we're really learning how to align it. So we're really living from all of our inner wisdoms all of the time. It's really cool. So.
We want you to know about your life. Love that picture. So I guess we kind of covered this, but really it's teaching those skills so that you are more and more equipped every day to live the life exactly the way you want it and feel that all-in experience as often as possible, maybe all in all the time.
Yeah. And then you just really create a life that you just can't wait to live because it's such an authentic expression of you. So, yeah. And the final is to give you a little of our contact information. Amy and I are both mBIT coaches. You can contact us through our website. That's our email address that's there. Amy and I love this process so much that we went last year to Spain and we trained as mBIT trainers, and we've done now 2 coach certifications. So we also train coaches to be certified in mBraining and the mBIT process. And so we would love to hear from you. We're doing it. We're lowering our rates for this period of time. We both work with stress and anxiety. As you can imagine, if you really get good at some of this stuff, we can really help you feel very balanced and present in your life, and creating a strong foundation within to really weather the changing times that are going on, particularly right now. And if you just want to learn a little bit more about it, go down into the corner, you see mBraining.com. There's tons and tons of podcasts and interviews and research articles and everything where you can learn a lot about this, even if you don't want to do any coaching. So would love to hear from you. Kiki, thank you so much for having us. This is so fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just a one more thing is that I just want to make sure that people know you can train an mBIT technique no matter what your job. You're interacting with people and the public in service. We had it at the last coach cert. We had people who were cranial sacral, and we had nurses, and we had all kinds of people. Because anytime you're interacting with somebody, if you're communicating with their 3 brains rather than just one, you're going to be able to help and sort of
fastest personal growth you're ever going to do. Fastest. So
absolutely. And thank you so much, ladies. That was a beautiful presentation. And yes, Amy, I think that's a perfect way to summarize it, because I think for our viewers, I'm hoping that they'll want to do it for themselves as much as they want to do it for helping their clients.
Well, it starts with us, right? I mean, if you have a very hard time helping somebody in a way that we haven't learned to work.
Exactly.
right. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much, ladies.
Oh, thank you, Kiki. That was so lovely.